So you guys knew I was going to do a video on this, right? The congestion charge. Oh yeah, it's back in the news. It was a big story in the headlines yesterday. And basically our beloved Mayor of London, in his infinite wisdom, has decided that the congestion charge needs an update. And whoa, what an update. It is both very, very complex and inevitably very, very costly. In effect, what's going to happen is that we're putting, well, you know what? You know when you go online to certain websites and you want to read an article and it says, right, paywall, there's a paywall, so you have to pay in order to go and read that article. So effectively what we're now having is a paywall around London. This is what we're going to get. And what happens when you go to a website and you encounter one of these paywalls? You tend to click off, don't you? You go, well, you know what? I can find that content free from somewhere else, so I'm just going to go somewhere else. Usually if it's automotive related, you'll come to Brown Car Guy because I don't charge for the content. Although I would encourage you to take out a voluntary subscription at patreon.com and coffee.com, all the links in the description. But anyway, there is no paywall in Brown Car Guy, but there is now effectively a paywall around London. And personally, I think that that is going to be highly detrimental to many things in London, including its businesses, its economy, and certainly, of course, people that live and work there. But you know what? I'll come back to a little bit more about my thoughts regarding these increases later on in the video. But first of all, I think it's only fair that I try to explain what has happened because, like I said, it is quite convoluted. So it's going to take a little bit of, digging through this to understand what they're actually doing. So let's get into that right after this.
A brown car guy.
Okay, so first of all, let's start with a little bit of history. So the congestion charge was introduced by the first mayor, effectively, of London, Ken Livingstone, back in 17th of February 2003. It was only £5. And I think that 57,000 people had registered for it or paid the charge by the afternoon of the first day. So they made about £250,000, something like that. And TfL at the time said, well, it was reducing congestion in the city by 30%. Now, I grew up in London. I grew up in Islington in central London. I knew the area really well. We moved out to northwest London in the mid-90s. But until then, we lived in central London. So when they introduced this, I was here in 2003. In 2006 I went to Dubai, but 2003 I was here. And when they introduced this this congestion charging zone, it was kind of annoying, but at the same time you went, yeah, you know what, I'm a Londoner. I know how bad traffic is there. I know how bad congestion is there. I know how bad pollution is there. I know how difficult it can be. Yeah, so it didn't really bother me. Also, like £5, it wasn't that big a deal. And also the fact, at the time it wasn't online, so if you were going into London, then you would stop at a corner shop or something and you'd have to pick up a £5 tab and do it that way. But, the reality was that you didn't need to go into central London that often and you would take the tube in, etc., etc. But £5, honestly, you were like, okay, that's fine. It's not that much of an extortion, if you like. However, it did increase. First of all, the zone increased. This is bizarre. Actually, I didn't know this, but there was a western extension to the zone in places such as Kensington and Notting Hill, introduced in 2007, but that was abolished 4 years later. So you can roll back these things. They can be abolished. They can go back to what they were. Keep that in mind. Anyway, in 2011, the cost doubled. So in 2011, 7 years after it was introduced, 8 years after it was introduced, the cost doubled to £10. And then another £1.50 was added to the fee in 2014. Fast forward to 2020, June 2020, and it increased by 30% from £11.50 up to £15. So it increased to £15 since 2020. So since 2020, that's what it's been. So now, we're in 2025, but in 2026, on 2nd of January 2026, the proposal, and by the way, this is a proposal. What we're reporting on here are proposed changes. There is going to be a public consultation. It's running till August the 4th of this year. But, going on previous experience and going on how things have gone in the past, the reality is that if it's anything to do with TfL, with the Mayor's office, and indeed the Mayor of London, the decision has already been made. Whatever the result of the consultation is going to be, it's probably going to be ignored. So whilst I have to tell you that this is the proposal of what they're planning to do, I would say take it as read that this is what's going to happen, unless something dramatic happens in the meantime. So the proposal is, like I said, it will rise by a fifth, so about 20% to £18 from the 2nd of January 2026. If the charge is not paid within 48 hours, drivers will face a penalty of £180, reduced to £90 if they pay within 14 days. The congestion charging zone operates every single day from 7 a.m. To 6 p.m. on weekdays, and 12 in the afternoon, so midday, till 6 p.m. on the weekends. Now, drivers of electric cars. Now, I should say that, we knew that there was going to be a change to the congestion charge, because I reported this before as well, quite a while back. I think over a year back, they did say, around a year, last year or whatever, they did say that, electric cars which are currently exempt in the congestion charging zone will no longer be exempt. That was a change that was happening anyway. That was going to happen from Christmas Day this year. So that is also part of this. Drivers of electric cars who currently travel free in the zone were expecting to pay the full charge from December, but they will get a 25% discount, provided they are registered for autopay. So if you have an electric car and you thought, okay, now we will also have to pay, and we're going to have to pay £15 and now £18 next year. In fact, as long as you register your car for autopay, your EV for autopay, then you will get a 25% discount on that. HGVs and vans, so commercial vehicles, will get a 50% discount. TfL is proposing to raise the levy annually. So this is the increase in charges now that are happening in January 2026, but unlike previously where the charges have been, after 5 years, after 7 years, or whatever it was, this will now increase every year. So every year, just like your tube ticket price goes up or whatever, they're going to increase the price of this as well. So even these numbers are not cast in stone; they will go up every year, in line with inflation, apparently. Now, they claim that without these changes, over 2,000 more vehicles would drive into the zone each day. I don't know how they've worked that out. I don't know how the traffic is increasing when you've got ULEZ expansion. The price of that has gone up. The total charge of ULEZ plus this going into London, is quite a lot. That's if your car is not ULEZ compliant. But they say that London has the most congested roads in Europe. You can't disagree with that. But partly, I think that that's got to do with the fact that they've made it the most congested place in Europe because of terrible, terrible traffic management. Even here in outer London, northwest London, I've said this before on video, and I constantly complain about it. But the Edgware Road, there are just constantly roadworks on it. At some part of it, it's literally like you just as soon as you think, oh, okay, finally that contraflow is gone. No, it's just moved to another place. And it's like, why can't you just get all the work done in one go? And then once they've done that, then they've gone back to the original place for some reason. It's just, and this is the case in London as well. It's just the one-way lanes, the bus lanes, the yellow boxes, and all the roadworks that are constantly going on. It's just an absolute nightmare. And also the narrowing of the lanes and all this. So the bottlenecks that it's causing. So a lot of this, to be honest, is just caused with pure planning and layouts and infrastructure. So anyway, now here's the thing. Applications for new residents discounts. So residents that live in there, obviously in London, were getting a 90% discount. Okay. Now, new residents, anybody that now moves into the area, if you have a petrol or diesel car, in March 2027. So not in 2026, not January 2026 when these changes increase or these increases come into play, but in March 2027, anybody now moving into the congestion charge area, which previously, if you had, and of course it would be a ULEZ compliant petrol or diesel car, but you would get a discount, a 90% discount for congestion charging. From March 2027, you will not get that discount. This is for new residents. I think for existing residents, it just continues as it is. Running a business these days, especially if you're a one-man army, is exhausting. Believe me, I can tell you all about it. From getting new clients to chasing payments to creating the content, it can be chaos. That's why I want to tell you about my friends at Stratagency. Now, they help solopreneurs and small business owners, especially folks in the car scene, automate, scale, and actually grow their business. Websites, content strategy, Instagram, WhatsApp, it's all sorted. If you're ready to go from being overwhelmed to in control, book a 15-minute consult at the link in the description and tell them Brown Car Guy sent you. From January, provided they are registered for autopay, electric car drivers will pay £13.50 a day. So as I said, that's a 25% discount. So from £18 down to £13.50. So electric car drivers, actually, they're better off than we originally thought, because we originally thought that they'd have to pay the full congestion charge from Christmas Day this year, which we believe to be £15 at the time. But they're not paying 15, they're not paying 18, they're actually paying £13.50. So electric car drivers, you can moan and complain because you're probably thinking that you were told to buy an electric car and that you get to drive free in London, and you can rightly feel aggrieved at the fact that that will not be the case. But at the same time, £13.50 you'll be paying less than some others. Although, keep in mind, like I said, if you're registered, I don't know if that applies. If you're registered as a resident, I don't know if the 90% still applies to electric vehicles. So that's something I don't think is covered in this article, so you'll have to find out. So if you're registered living in London and you have an EV, petrol and diesel cars will not get the 90% discount, but they've specifically said petrol and diesel cars. So I wonder if electric vehicles will still get the 90% discount. Anyway, so electric cars will pay £13.50 a day. That's a 25% discount. And commercial vehicles, HGVs, vans, light quadricycles, heavy quadricycles as well. Okay, quadricycles as well. They will pay £9 a day. That's 50% off. In March 2030, these discounts will also reduce. So even though you're thinking, all right, well, it's okay, I'm going to get a discount. So I've got my electric car and I'm getting a discount. It's 25% off. It's £13.50. But first of all, that total amount is going to be increasing every year. So by 2030, God knows what it will be, because if it's £18 in 2026, it might be £25 by the time we get to 2030. Imagine that, £25 to drive into central London, whereas when it was introduced, the congestion zone was £5. I mean, wow, just think about that. But anyway, so these discounts that you think, well, it's okay, because I'll get a 50% discount or a 25% discount. No, you won't, because those discounts will drop in March 2030. They will go down to 12.5% for EVs and 25% for commercial vehicles and the quadricycle things, what have you. Those already registered for the discount ahead of this date will not see any changes, reflecting that they might be reliant on their current form of transport. Oh, how nice of you to consider that. What about everybody else? But anyway, doesn't make any difference to ULEZ. ULEZ stays as it is. You pay £12.50 to drive in the ULEZ zone. Add that to the £18 and you're looking at over £30 a day. I'll let that sink in. You'll pay over £30 a day. If you happen to use one of the tunnels, Silver Town or Blackwall, then that will be £4 additionally each way at peak time. So yeah, just start to tot up your bill before you think about driving into London, I should say. Currently the congestion charge costs £15 if paid in advance or on the day of travel, or £17.50 by midnight on the third day of travel. Did you know this? I didn't know this, because if I ever had to drive into the zone, I would pay the congestion charge immediately. But apparently, if you miss it, if you still pay it by the midnight on the third day of the travel, I don't know what that means. Third day after travel or third day of the travel. So if I travel today and I don't pay tomorrow, then the day after is the third day. By midnight of that day, if I pay, then I can still pay £17.50 rather than get fined. Under these new plans, it would cost £18, obviously, if you pay in advance, and that £17.50 would go up to £21. So £21. If you missed it on the first 2 days, it's £21. Apparently, they're going to try and make it easier for electric vehicle drivers to get their discount. So they're going to try and make that so that it's automatic from the DVLA database. So it will just know that you have. Previously, you had to register your electric car. So even if you had an electric car and you want to drive into London, don't forget you couldn't just drive into London. You had to register your electric car to make sure that you got the exemption. So one assumes you'll still have to do that, but at some point they'll be able to use DVLA data. You would assume that should be easy, but anyway, at some point they will do that. So that's what it is. So as complex and convoluted and crazy and costly as that is, and I'm sure you can think of some other C words to apply to this situation, but I won't go into that. But as mad as it all is, that's what it's all about. But thinking about, hope you're enjoying this video. Make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe if you're not already doing so. And support independent automotive journalism channels like mine. You can do that at patreon.com, coffee.com, or taking out a subscription right here on YouTube. Or you know what, better still, you can go and buy my books. I've got 3 books out now. They're all on Amazon. They're all available to buy. More details on this are in the description, but buying any of these books will certainly help. Thanks so much for all about. But thinking about how this impacts people, I mean, it's absolutely crazy. The costs of driving into London are just mental. And even if you're living in London, even if you're living in London and you're getting that discount, remember, if you live in London, you had an EV, and so you didn't have to pay anything. Now, suddenly, you will have to pay. You'll have to pay something. You will have to pay something. So all of a sudden, every time you use your car, that's a cost. Now, the thing about London, and this is where I think that they're getting it completely wrong. When they're trying to bring life back to London, they're trying to re-inject life back into London, to bring tourism back, to bring people back to the theatres, to the clubs, to the bars, to all the rest of it, to eat, to restaurants and all that. It's just becoming too expensive, And at the end of the day, when I was growing up, Central London was the hub of everything. Like, even if you wanted to go shopping, you'd go to Oxford Street. I mean, that was like the only place you could go. But of course, now when you live outside London, you will go to Westfield, you go to Brent Cross, you go to whatever. You don't have to. I mean, we still do sometimes, but you jump on the tube because it's relatively easy. But most of the time, you don't. But if you want to stay there late night, and with the fact with all the crime and everything that's happening in London, say you go out to the theatre or to an event or something like that, then when you come back, especially if you're with family and stuff like that, then you want the safety and security of a car, especially if it's cold as well, which it always is, and it's raining, which it always is. Then you want the safety, security, and the comfort of a car, but you won't take your car. So inevitably, what does that do? Inevitably, that puts you off going, because you'll be like, that's just not worth it. Because you think a night out, say you're going to an event, say you're paying, I don't know, £100 each to go to the theatre or whatever, and then food, so that's another £100 on top of that, and then you just literally, it's the straw that broke the camel's back when you think about adding, £30, whatever. Say if you're there for a late night event and it goes over to 12 o'clock, then you'll have to pay twice as well. So the costs are inevitable, and I really don't think that this is the way to actually stimulate the business and economy of struggling London right now, which it is struggling, and the TfL and the London Mayor's office admits they're struggling. That's why it's putting these prices up, because it's trying to make money. That's effectively what's happening. Because at the end of the day, it's not saying we're banning all cars, you can't bring them in. It's saying, no, we'll just charge you more. So basically, they're making money. At some point, it's going to go to a ban. It's inevitably going to become a ban, because people will just be like, I'm not using the car anymore, and that'll be it. So it's a difficult one in my opinion, because the congestion charge zone admittedly is a small zone. It's within London, and usually it's easier to get around in that area by using the bus or the tube. But inevitably, it will have an impact on a lot of people, and certainly a lot of businesses. There was a business that they highlighted in the news report that had just bought a bunch of electric vans because they needed to go around that area, and now, of course, they're going to be hit. I mean, their charge will be small because it's a commercial vehicle, but still, they will be hit with the charge. So they still have to add that to their budget for the year. So I don't know. I think it's one of those things where it was almost inevitable. Is it too much? Is it too fast? Is it too exorbitant? Well, you know what? You tell me, and I'm sure you will in the comments below. So I look forward to hearing your comments. Make sure that you hit like, share, and subscribe on your way out. And remember, if you don't say anything now, if you don't put your foot down now, if you don't draw the line now, the congestion charge, like the ULEZ zone, will expand, will continue to expand until it embraces not just London, but other major cities, and then not just cities, but the whole country, and then inevitably we will all just sit in our homes and go everywhere virtually. That's what we're heading towards. Let me know what you think. I'll catch you all in the next video. Shout out time, guys. Thank you so much. Hey, if you enjoy my content, why not get involved? Buy me a coffee. You can do that at either of these links. Or if you're watching on YouTube, buy me a thanks or take out a membership. It all helps. It really does.